At this very moment, a fateful battle for Pokrovsk is underway. This is the hottest point. The course of the war is being decided right here. The GUR carried out an operation that the entire front is talking about. Special forces managed to break through the corridor of death. Right now, something is unfolding that no one expected. All the details coming up.
The decisive battle for Pokrovsk continues. Russian troops are advancing within the city, but Ukrainian forces are holding the defense and launching counterattacks, slowing down the enemy's actions. The defense forces continue clearing Pokrovsk of occupiers, now in the northern part of the city. This became possible because over the past few days it was possible to reinforce with personnel and equipment. After a successful airborne operation, additional special forces units joined the GUR commandos who had secured certain positions and established a ground corridor. According to the President of Ukraine, special operations of various kinds are taking place in Pokrovsk, but most of them should not be discussed. Russian troops are trying to break through the Ukrainian armed forces' defenses, attacking in several directions at once and concentrating the largest number of soldiers and officers here.
According to various estimates by the Ukrainian command, around 100,000 Russian servicemen are directly or indirectly involved in this entire operation around Pokrovsk. That is, well, this is an approximate figure. In other words, just to give you an idea of the scale of the forces involved. I'll go even further. There have even been cases where forces were redeployed from the Sumy region and from the direction of Kostiantynivka toward Pokrovsk to reinforce the area because there simply aren't enough people.
We're talking about so-called kamikazes, that is, contract soldiers with an average life expectancy of just 12 days. And accordingly, these are special units of the Russian army, plus, of course, Marine brigades. In particular, the 155th Marine Brigade has been redeployed to the Pokrovsk direction in the Skur region.
According to the Institute for the Study of War, the occupiers have advanced in the southern part of Minohrad and in eastern Rodinske, gradually approaching the city of Pokrovsk itself.
Are you talking about establishing a foothold directly in Minohrad? At the moment, Russian occupation forces have not fully entrenched themselves there. At the moment, the presence of Russian occupiers has been verified at the territory of the Mine Administration 5.2.6. Regarding Rodinske, it should be noted that the situation is changing dynamically. In other words, the occupiers are trying to intensify their offensive in order to take direct control of the location. The Ukrainian defense forces are conducting counterattacks to prevent further advances by the Russians.
The enemy is trying to capture Pokrovsk and the nearby settlements, and the occupier is increasing the number of air attacks, particularly using glide bombs and drones.
There is no classic encirclement, as it is usually understood or described in textbooks, around the city of Pokrovsk. In other words, there is no solid ring. It is not closed. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, the part that is not yet closed is about 5 kilometers wide. But this is the maximum critical distance, and it no longer plays any role because Russian drones are present there, Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups are already there, shells are flying, and for the movement of Ukrainian troops, the situation has deteriorated to the maximum in the past week.
According to the General Staff, over the past day, Ukrainian defenders have stopped 55 assault actions by the aggressor.
During these combined attacks, up to a tank battalion of the Russian armed forces is used. That is more than 30 units of heavy armored vehicles. Moreover, they are using a tactic of not sparing any cost. The occupiers are well aware of the superiority of Ukraine's defense forces in the use of FPV drones, and that no more than 20% of the heavy armored vehicles, and accordingly personnel, will actually reach the positions of Ukraine's defense forces.
Despite the enemy's active operations, the Ukrainian armed forces continue to hold their positions and destroy enemy forces.
Over the past week, the defense forces of Ukraine have successfully counterattacked and managed to deoccupy 4 settlements: Kucherevo Yar, Suketske, Zatishok, and Shakhovo. At the moment, the occupiers are trying to intensify their offensive along the flanks of the Ukrainian group, specifically in the area of Vladimirovka, threatening to advance toward Grishino. These are combined attacks involving armored vehicles.
On the eastern flank of the Pokrovsk operation, in the area of Dobropolye, Ukrainian forces have liberated part of the territory that Russian troops had previously advanced into. According to analysts, the Donetsk region remains the main direction of Russia's offensive this winter, with the goal of achieving significant results by the spring of 2025.
The explosive strategy of the Ukrainian armed forces. Ukrainian aviation and drones are striking ever deeper into the enemy's rear. Strikes on military and energy facilities have become more frequent and deadly accurate. Just recently, the most important targets have been set ablaze. The Ukrainian armed forces have announced Russia is facing a blackout. What kind of winter campaign have our forces already prepared? All the shocking details are coming up in the report.
Military facilities, energy infrastructure, and the oil industry. The war has fully shifted onto Russian territory, and the Ukrainian armed forces seem to have defined their targets in the occupiers' rear and are ramping up long-range strikes.
One of the main goals is to force Russia to end the war. The aim is to make the cost of this war higher for Russia, so that there is more motivation to bring it to an end.
At the same time, the defense forces are giving Russians more motivation every day. In the past few weeks, not a single night has passed in Russia without something exploding, catching fire, or being destroyed. We've compiled the most high-profile incidents. Undoubtedly, the most striking event regarding Russian blackouts was the Ukrainian armed forces attack on the Moscow region on the night of November 1st. Monitoring channels reported hundreds of drones that flew out to bomb Russia, and they hit their targets. Even though Moscow's energy system held up, entire settlements around the capital were left without power. In particular, the Moscow suburbs and the city of Zhukovsky were left without power.
The Ukrainian armed forces have already carried out numerous strikes on stations and substations, and electricity and heating are periodically cut off in many cities across Russia and in the occupied territories. Let me remind you, Ukraine is conducting a campaign against Russian energy infrastructure in response to Russia's terror attacks on Ukraine's power-generating facilities. I believe that in December, this retaliatory campaign will reach a new level, with the use of Flamingo missiles almost on a daily basis.
The campaign to destroy Russia's oil industry is also ongoing. In particular, strikes on the Russian oil terminal in Tuapse were especially effective in recent days.
The attack on the Apsey-Morsk port was quite large-scale, effective, and also spectacular. Local residents began taking photos and recording videos of the attack. The beginning of this attack was also captured on video. Meanwhile, local emergency services issued their usual statement, asking people not to film the aftermath of the strikes. They say it helps the enemy.
However, what actually helps the Ukrainian armed forces is not the videos made by concerned Russians who, in the 4th year of the war, have suddenly discovered that it's happening right outside their windows. It's intelligence data, including from Western sources, that enables such precise strikes.
As a result of the strike, according to the Russian side's own assessment, Ukrainian UAVs hit the following targets. The central overpass, that's the main hub.
The Ukrainian armed forces managed to kill several birds with one stone in a single strike. That is, they destroy a facility that is both extremely important to the Russian economy and at the same time an outright military target.
The strike targeted an industrial giant of the Stavropol region, the Stavrolen petrochemical plant in the city of Budyonnovsk. This is one of the largest producers of polyethylene, polypropylene, benzene, and other petrochemical components that are actively used in the military-industrial complex.
Analysts note that this was the first time a strike was carried out there. By the way, the plant is located 700 kilometers from Ukraine, and the enterprise supplies raw materials both to the domestic market and for export. This means that the attack damages not only the military-industrial complex, but also Russia's export revenues. Defense forces are also targeting Russian facilities in the occupied territories. A few days ago, residents of Crimea felt this especially strongly after one of the largest attacks on the peninsula in recent months, particularly targeting oil depots in Fardiske and Sevastopol.
The outcome of this episode is as follows. In just 1 hour, 2 major oil facilities in Crimea were put out of operation. This means a complete loss of stability in the occupiers' rear supply lines in this sector. Especially against the backdrop of the destruction and disabling of the largest oil terminal in Feodosia and the general gasoline shortage in Russia itself, which, I remind you, is the only source of resupplying Crimea's oil depots.
Most recently, on the night of November 4th, drones and Storm Shadow missiles launched by the defense forces managed to damage both Russian energy infrastructure and oil depots, and also significantly complicated their presence in the occupied territories by effectively disabling all military facilities within the strike zone.
Ukrainian drones struck substations in Luhansk, Alchevsk, Kadivka, and Pervomaisk. These are temporarily occupied territories of Luhansk region. There have been reports of widespread power outages for consumers. Blockade on the territory of the Russian Federation over the past day. Drone strikes by the Ukrainian Defense Forces. In Kursk region, this is Zheleznogorsk targeting a substation. The city is completely without power. In Lipetsk region, it's the Pesus traction substation. Usman and accordingly the city of Orel. A strike was carried out on the oral text. That's regarding the blackout.
As for military targets, analysts call one of the most successful long-range attacks by the AFU the explosions at the dam near Belgorod. The strike was so precise that no civilians were harmed. However, Russian units in the Kharkiv region were cut off from their own forces due to the flooding, and the offensive failed.
An important target: to strike at Russia's logistics capabilities, at ammunition depots, airfields, aircraft and troop concentrations in order to create difficulties for Moscow's war machine. To strike at the centers from which Russia directs operations at the front, and from which it can attack Ukraine's strategic infrastructure, including its energy sector.
At the same time, it's far too early for Russians to relax, as announced by the head of the drone systems forces, Madhyar. This winter, residents of the Russian Federation will find out what a blackout is. He also reminded everyone that gas and oil burn perfectly well, clearly hinting at new attacks on oil refineries.
As of November, according to estimates from the Russian side itself, about 40% of oil refineries on the territory of the Russian Federation have already been put out of commission.
Well, as they say, to be continued.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now. The Ukrainian defense industry is working wonders. Our engineers have created their own version of the most useful drones, and this is just the beginning of a technological breakthrough. New drones, robots and strike systems are appearing at lightning speed, leaving the enemy in shock. We'll tell you right now which developments are already changing the rules of war.
Reconnaissance, fire adjustment, striking targets by dropping munitions. The Chinese Mavic drone is practically the main weapon of the Ukrainian armed forces in the war against the occupier. And now Ukrainian industry has begun supplying domestically produced Mavic-type UAVs to the front lines.
A certain Mr. X invested, created a Ukrainian Mavic, and we will see it soon. We've already delivered the first 1,000 to the battlefield.
Compared to the Chinese Mavic, the Ukrainian counterpart has a greater flight range and can carry a larger payload. It is used not only for reconnaissance, but also for strike missions. The importance of the appearance of Ukrainian drones in this niche is hard to overestimate, since there are huge problems with the supply of Mavics to Ukraine.
DJI has banned sales to Ukraine, piously declaring that its products are not intended for military purposes, so drones have to be purchased from third parties. The security issues are obvious. The Pentagon has banned any use of DJI drones, which send data to the manufacturers. DJI has also added security features that make it impossible for the latest models to fly in geo-blocked zones, including Ukraine, without extensive hacking. Finally, sovereign drone production is seen as a key strategic capability for the future.
The Chinese Mavic drone's counterpart is called Shmavic, and despite its ironic name, it has already been certified and boasts some serious features.
Shmavic is positioned as a tactical reconnaissance UAV designed to carry out operational tasks on the front line. Unlike the civilian Mavic, which is mainly used for aerial photography and videography, Shmavic is built for combat conditions. It has an operational range of up to 15 kilometers, a flight duration of up to 60 minutes, and is equipped with a reliable navigation system resistant to interference.
As early as last year, the government announced its interest in replacing Chinese drones. Now, manufacturers have already certified Ukrainian Mavics and set up production.
As of today, it is impossible to completely replace the entire fleet of imported drones currently being used in Ukraine in the short term. Our weapons manufacturers already have developments and designs that meet the needs of our security and defense forces. Now it is necessary to scale up this production and minimize the number of foreign counterparts as much as possible, and transition to domestic models.
There are already many Ukrainian analogs of the Mavic, including Ukreporter, Yaidia, and the charming Shmavik. They are larger than DJI Mavic drones, equipped with long-range communication, interference resistance, and are more expensive. But they may turn out to be more economical due to their greater reliability.
For us, the key indicator is not the price per drone, but the cost of a single mission. While a typical Mavic completes about 60 missions per drone, our systems on average complete around 300 missions per unit. With a comparable purchase price, the cost of a single mission is 5 times lower, which means that military units operating our drones achieve a much greater overall economic benefit. Drone manufacturer.
Independent UAV production is a crucial element of modern warfare, and Ukraine knows this better than anyone, as both short-range UAVs and long-range strike drones have become key components of national defense.